New reports from the United States intelligence agencies indicate that Israel is preparing for a strike in Iran as talks between the United States and Iran on nuclear issues appear to be heading for a collapse as Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has stopped even pretending to take them seriously. So welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm Yair Pinto, bringing you the latest updates about what's happening in Israel. In his remarks at a ceremony to mark the anniversary of the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, who was terminated in a helicopter crash last year, Khamenei openly dismissed the talks, saying that he does not think they'll result in anything useful. The supreme leader of Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps added in a separate remark that I don't think the negotiations with the United States will bear any fruit. If that's how the regime feels about them, then why are we even still bothering? At the heart of the ongoing dispute is Iran's demand to allow to enrich uranium to its own soil for research purposes, so-called. Even before that point can be addressed, there is the fact that Iran has already reached a point of no return with enough enriched uranium for at least 6 nuclear bombs. However, they are still vulnerable to sanctions and to other measures. This is because Iran suffers from an energy crisis, poor infrastructure, and a very weak currency. Yet, if it succeeds in getting United States sanctions lifted, it will likely reach the bomb and the economic stabilization as well, which would be very bad news for Israel. So TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will take us behind the scenes in this neighborhood to give us some more insights into this very complex situation. And meanwhile, Operation Gideon's Chariots in the Gaza Strip is not just a military offensive. It is a campaign to dismantle the terror machine and reshape the region's strategic future. As the operation continues, battle teams from the 401st Brigade and the Givati Brigade under Division 162 have begun activity in northern Gaza. More than 100 targets were struck in the last 24 hours, and the IDF and the Shin Bet eliminated the commander of Hamas's air array in the northern part of the Strip. The Givati Brigade is also hard at work, demolishing Hamas infrastructure both above and below the ground and eliminating several terrorist fighters in the Tel El-Zatar area. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir delivered a tough message: Hamas will pay. However, there was also a big announcement on the diplomatic front early Wednesday morning. Israel has agreed to the American outline for the return of the hostages formulated by President Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, but Hamas still refuses and no deal has yet been achieved. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has recalled most of the Israeli delegation from Doha, Qatar, as there doesn't seem to be anything left to say. And meanwhile, Israel is taking seriously the single demand that the United States administration asked to be met immediately, and that is giving an answer to the hunger images in the Gaza Strip. Already, there has been a 10-fold increase in the number of trucks that are sent into the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid, but the United Nations says none of these trucks made it to their destination and to the centers in Gaza. However, a source in Gaza said that there are still very large quantities of food accumulated in warehouses, but they remain under Hamas control in order to keep the supplies for itself. On Israel's northern border with Lebanon, a senior Hezbollah operative tried to rebuild terror infrastructure in southern Lebanon, but he was hit by an Israeli airstrike, and he won't be doing that any longer or anything else. And next door in Syria, American officials are warning of the possibility of a new civil war as the regime of Abu Muhammad al-Julani could collapse within weeks. That's bad news for Israel, the United States, and the entire region. And last week, President Donald Trump placed a bet on al-Julani when he met publicly with him in Saudi Arabia and announced that the Assad-era sanctions on Syria are being lifted. The EU soon made a similar announcement. However, there are still reports coming out of Syria forces that are linked to the regime carrying out atrocities against minorities, including the Alawites, Christians, and Druze. We'll bring you some more details about that later in this report. And another player in the Syrian arena is, of course, Turkey. And this week, the United States and Turkey announced that they will increase cooperation in the Syrian arena. These developments and other issues will be covered as our senior correspondent, Shmulik Smadja, hosts Amir Tsarfati to analyze what was agreed on during the American visit to the Middle East and how it now affects the near future. And finally, Hamas continues its psychological warfare on the Israeli public. The family of Matan Tzangaker, who has been held captive for 592 days straight, issued a statement on Tuesday revealing new and harsh testimony about his condition. So guys, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 594 of this war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups that are operating in this region under the orders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to thank you for all the support, the prayers in these months and already close to 2 years of a war. And even before that, it is only possible for us to share the truth from Israel because of your help and your prayers. So guys, if you want to stand with us and help us reach more people, please hit that subscribe button and help us share these videos, and also never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. So we start today's report with the events in the Gaza Strip. In the last 24 hours, the Air Force of Israel struck more than 100 terror targets across the Gaza Strip. And I can tell you about that firsthand because yesterday, Mati Shoshani and I sat on the border with Gaza and Israel and watched the explosions live. So check out yesterday's live stream on our channel, TBN Israel, called Operation Gideon's Chariots, the new operation that the IDF is doing in the Gaza Strip. And amongst the targets that were struck was a weapons storage facility, terrorists, and a military building that was used by the Islamic Jihad terrorist group containing weapons, as well as tunnels and underground bunkers, military buildings, and observation posts. As part of the expanding of the ground maneuver, the IDF operated on Tuesday evening in Bet Lahia in northern Gaza and struck Hamas terror infrastructure. The power of the explosions was unusual. Some were heard as far as the center of the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, it was reported that the IDF also struck building A4 in the Hamed City neighborhood in northwest Khan Yunis. Residents said that the building was completely demolished after tenants had been ordered to evacuate beforehand. On Wednesday morning, Gaza sources reported that the IDF dropped leaflets calling residents to evacuate Khan Yunis, Beni Suwaili, and Absan to the El Mawasi area. And notices said, urgent warning, IDF will launch an unprecedented strike to destroy terror organizations. You must immediately move west to the El Mawasi. From now on, Khan Yunis government is considered dangerous combat zone. The terror organization brought this disaster upon you, so evacuate immediately. And elsewhere, combat teams of the 401st Brigade and the Givati Brigade under Division 162 began operations in northern Gaza. They report heavy contact with Hamas fighters and have already eliminated dozens of enemy fighters, as well as discovered and demolished tunnels and weapon stockpiles. The Artillery Brigade 215 reports that it had so far struck more than 30 terror infrastructures, including weapons depots, booby-trap buildings, and observation posts. In short, IDF forces continue to act against terror organizations in the Gaza Strip in order to protect the security of Israel's citizens. To review, On Saturday, the Israeli Air Force opened a massive wave of preemptive strikes, hitting 670 Hamas terror targets across the Gaza Strip. And according to the IDF, only in the first days of the operation Gideon's Chariots, dozens of Hamas operatives were eliminated, significant terror infrastructures were dismantled, and many tunnels located and destroyed, including a 2-kilometer-long underground route that was used by Hamas. In addition, IDF forces discovered and neutralized tunnel shafts, explosives, and weapons caches, including rockets, grenades, and launchers. From Bet Lahia in the north to Khan Yunis in the south, the message is unequivocal. This operation will not stop until Hamas is dismantled. At the same time, the IDF is very aware that there are civilians in this combat zone who are not targets of this operation. Therefore, the IDF has issued evacuation notices to civilians in areas designated for operations such as Khan Yunis, calling them to move to defined humanitarian zones such as El Mawasi. The objectives remain clear and consistent: the return of all hostages, the destruction of Hamas's military and political power in the Gaza Strip, and ensuring no new threat arises to Israel from the Strip. Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Yair Zamir held a situation assessment in Gaza on Tuesday evening, stressing that Hamas will pay the price. It will face overwhelming firepower, we will expand the maneuver, seize additional territory in Gaza, cleanse and destroy terror infrastructures until it is defeated. We are defending ourselves and therefore we must strike. Hamas has one option: to release our hostages. If there is an agreement, the IDF will adjust its activity accordingly. And of course, there is another side to this story, and life has become very difficult for everyone in the Gaza Strip. Because of this, the anti-Hamas demonstrations that took place in Khan Yunis this week are expected to resume in light of the new IDF evacuation notices. Also, there is hope regarding the humanitarian zone plan in Rafah that will be isolated from Hamas. Even as the fighting intensifies, Israel has not abandoned its commitment to protect civilian lives, and in a major policy shift last week, the Israeli Security Cabinet approved the immediate renewal of humanitarian shipments before the broader phase distribution program expected to start in the south of the Gaza Strip within the coming week. And regarding food in the Gaza Strip, a Gaza source estimated that very large quantities of food remained accumulated in warehouses of merchants and international institutions. However, these are under Hamas control in order to keep the supplies for itself. Armed elements guard the food supply from theft, and it is sold at a very high price. So guys, I invite you to leave a comment on this video about the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. Who do you think is responsible for this deplorable situation in which hundreds of thousands of people are not getting enough food to eat? I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about this. So in any case, after Israel renewed the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip on Monday, only 9 trucks entered. But on Tuesday evening, Kogat announced that 93 trucks entered the Gaza Strip. However, the United Nations said that these supplies did not reach the distribution points. I wonder what happened to them. Is it possible that Hamas stole it, as Israel had been saying all along would happen if these shipments started up coming into Gaza again? Once again, I invite you to leave a comment on this video and let me know what you think about the situation. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to bring you military reports, boots on the ground style, from inside the Gaza battlefield, and keep you updated on the fighting and the situation. As always, we ask you to help us spread the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, click the subscribe button. It helps us reach more people around the world so that they will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now, we just spoke about the difficult situation in the Gaza Strip, but I also want to talk to you about the difficult situation inside Israel. Right now, families across Israel are struggling. children are going to bed hungry, and many people, including Holocaust survivors, are living alone with empty fridges and no one to help. This is real, this is urgent, and you can make a difference. Meir Panim is on the ground, feeding the hungry, caring for the forgotten, and restoring dignity to those who need it most. But they can't do it alone. They need your help. Every gift means a hot meal, a kind smile, and hope where it's needed most. So don't wait. Please visit www.bless-israel.org. Again, that's bless-israel.org. Together, let's bring hope to the nation of Israel. So visit bless-israel.org today. So before we move on to the news about Iran, I want to keep our focus on the Gaza Strip for a moment as we look at the latest developments in negotiations to return the Israeli hostages who have now been held there for 593 days straight. The Prime Minister's office announced on Tuesday evening that Israel accepts the American proposal for the return of the hostages based on the outline of Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. This proposal was recently conveyed to Hamas via mediators, but so far it continues to insist on its maximalist demands. Therefore, Israel's senior negotiation team will return home for consultation, and a working-level team will remain in Doha, Qatar, at this stage, while officials said that Israel is ready to resume negotiations as soon as it receives an indication that Hamas is prepared for serious dialogue. According to Israeli sources, the delegation stayed in Qatar even when it became clear that there was no progress and Hamas dug in and did not budge from its demands for guarantees on ending this war. We decided not to break the tools and leave, amongst other reasons because the Americans very much want to see the effort continue, and yes, so as not to appear as refusers. That is certainly what Hamas would like to happen. Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed El-Tahani announced on Tuesday that the Israel-Hamas negotiation is at an impasse in light of substantial gaps between the sides that have not narrowed. Israel's irresponsible and aggressive behavior undermines any chance for peace. This is according to the Qatari leader, and he also added, one side seeks a comprehensive agreement in the Gaza Strip and the other wants a partial deal. We have not succeeded in bridging the gaps. If this diplomatic impasse continues, then there is no alternative to a continued escalation in military activity, which for the moment is happening at the same time as humanitarian aid shipments are also resuming into the Gaza Strip. However, for the first time this week, the Prime Minister's office admitted that contacts are underway for a complete end to this war beyond the American Witkoff plan. IDF officers were reportedly furious at this news and said this would mean stopping the military operation without achieving its main goals, which are destroying the Hamas terrorist organization and returning the hostages. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on the diplomatic developments with the terrorist organization Hamas in the talks to release our hostages. So keep spreading the truth and pray for the safety of our hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip. Now, we move on to the section that everyone has been waiting for in this report as we look into the question, will Israel strike Iran soon? Yesterday, it was published that the United States has obtained new intelligence indicating that Israel is preparing to strike nuclear facilities in Iran, even as the Trump administration pushes for a diplomatic deal with Tehran. CNN reported this overnight, citing American officials familiar with the updated intelligence. The dramatic report followed remarks on Tuesday by Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, in which he expressed doubt that the nuclear talks could be successfully completed and declared that Washington's demands that Tehran not enrich uranium on its own soil is excessive and outrageous. Khamenei who has the final word on everything that happens or doesn't happen in the Islamic Republic of Iran, declared, "I don't think that the nuclear talks with the United States will yield results. No one in Iran is waiting for American approval regarding uranium enrichment. We will not accept the United States and Europe's demands to stop enrichment." To give some context amid the nuclear negotiations that the United States is conducting with Iran, last month, the New York Times reported that Israel had planned to strike Iran's nuclear sites and was stopped by President Trump. However, the president himself later addressed the report that same day, asserting that he had not blocked the strike. He added that if a strike on the nuclear facilities were still possible, it would be very bad for Iran. He said, "I think Iran wants to talk. I hope. That would be very good for them, if they talk. I would like to see Iran prosper in the future. I know the Iranian people. They are amazing, always very smart, energetic, successful, and I do not want to do something that harms people." This is according to President Trump. However, he emphasized that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's that simple. And here, I want to hand the report over to TBN Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani. Mati, tell us what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. The power balances are shifting, and it appears that the Iran-U.S. talks are on the verge of collapse. So, what's going on?
Today's headlines are something quite out of the ordinary. The U.S. administration leaks, we don't know if this is with the advice of the Israeli government or not, it leaks information to several outlets, including CNN and Reuters, saying the following thing: Israel is preparing to attack in Iran. And this whole story is interesting on multiple levels, and we're going to break them down in the next couple minutes. So first of all, the content of this leak. The information says the following. It says, look, Israel is gearing up towards an attack. We've intercepted communication within the Israeli government or military or between the two that says that an attack by Israel on Iranian soil is happening any day or any moment soon. This all happens in the wake of a very long series of negotiations, multiple months, culminating in 4 weeks of direct negotiations between the U.S. and the Iranians that haven't led to anything substantial. And all this time, Israel has been deeply concerned with the fact that whatever agreement is going to be reached won't be sufficient to really stop the Iranian push for a bomb. And that brings us to today, the threat of an Israeli attack on Iranian soil. This information, again, is leaked by the U.S. administration, and within hours we get a response from the Iranians themselves saying this is psychological terror or psychological warfare against the people of Iran. But they also say in the same breath that they don't really have a plan B. That now that the negotiations have sort of failed, and I'll get to that in a second, they really are going back to a pre-October 7th, 2023 philosophy, modus operandi of using proxy warfare to try and weaken and attack Israel. And Israel is at a junction where we need to decide whether we're attacking now or not attacking and allowing the Iranians to continue this never-ending negotiation trying to reach nuclear capability, trying to sow terrorism and fear in the hearts of people throughout the Middle East. So we're in a really interesting place, a really interesting turn of events that raises a huge amount of questions over what is really happening in the background. Is this a negotiation tactic by the Americans and the Israelis to try to scare the Iranians back to the negotiation table and force them to accept terms that they've previously refused to accept? Or is this really what's happening? Is Israel truly about to attack within Iran? The last couple of weeks have been very interesting in the relationship between Israel, the Iranians, and the U.S. The U.S. has entered these negotiations with a clear statement of their goals. Remove all uranium enrichment from Iran, including the facilities, the technology, the hardware. Remove all enriched uranium, so the centrifuges first, the facilities, then remove the enriched uranium from Iran. And third, stop being a terrorist breeding nation. And the Iranians, in turn, would receive an almost immediate removal of all sanctions against the country. But the U.S. says, look, we're close to an agreement, and within a day, usually, Iran responds and says, not really, we're not really ready to enter into an agreement on this negotiation. So it puts the U.S. in a place where they seem to be continuously losing face and unable to reach an agreement with the Iranians. And Iran is at a place where they've stretched the rope with the U.S. and with Israel to the point where I feel like action has to take place. Iran, at the same time as they have been making some very, very bold statements saying that they refuse to return to the negotiation table because there will be no reality in which they are without enriched uranium. Now, that's something that Israel simply can't live with. It's a reality in which Iran continues to push for a bomb, both in a clandestine or an open way, and we simply can't live with that reality. The Israeli government, specifically Prime Minister Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Katz, have clearly stated time and time again that Israel will not live with an agreement, or will refuse to live with an agreement that doesn't fully eliminate all the nuclear capabilities that the Iranians have. And what that means, again, is removing centrifuges, removing the already enriched uranium, and changing the way their government operates, specifically when it comes to threatening Israel and breeding terrorism through proxy warfare in this region. Israel has also said, in relation to the Iranian negotiation tactics, quote unquote, we still have on the table the option of military weaponized action against the Iranians, with or without the Americans. Multiple months now, the U.S. has had a very substantial amount of weapons, of manpower in this region, all poised around Iran, all with the threat of, if negotiations fail, then we will go to the military option. But in recent weeks, it seemed like the U.S. was leaning more and more towards the option of negotiation over military action. And Israel has said time and time again, we still maintain the right to use military action. This strike could be anything from a small strike to a full-on outright attack on Iranian facilities and the dozens of those facilities. And you need to remember that Israel has been training for this. This isn't a new scenario. This isn't the first time we've thought about this. Israel has been training time and time again with the Americans and without the Americans, all with the goal of being able to preemptively strike within Iran, eliminate many of the assets that are tied to their nuclear program. We have this huge question mark of, might this just happen any day now? I've personally seen with my team, we've traveled down south and we've met the fighter pilots and seen the aircraft that have been striking within Iran, within Houthi-controlled Yemen, and elsewhere in the Middle East for several years now. We've met those people, and let me tell you something. The Israeli Air Force is ready. So why is this topic so urgent? Well, let me remind you that in the last 18 months, the Israeli Air Force and intelligence forces have slowly peeled away Iran's defensive abilities. We've struck within Iran multiple times and shown that we know how to blast through, pun intended, their aerial defenses. We've done the same with the Houthis, their proxies in this region, and at the same time, we've weakened their ring of fire philosophy that was supposed to be a deterrence against Israel by eliminating Hezbollah and before that, Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And by doing all of that, much of Iranian deterrence in this region is weakened or almost gone from the table. Their ability to fight against Israel is substantially weakened because of Israeli strikes within Iran. And we have an ever-closing window of opportunity where the U.S. is still in the region. We enjoy the benefit of international support, and we have the military ability to strike within Iran before they have time to bring in more aerial defense systems, etc., etc. And all of this brings us to the question of what's going to happen. Well, this could go one of two ways. One, Israel might just really strike any moment in Iran, and that might come as a surprise, and we'll wake up one morning only to see that dozens of sites across Iran have been attacked. The Iranian government will suffer dramatically from the loss of prestige and perception of their power in this region, but this will start a more regional conflict. Iran is guaranteed to respond with ballistic missiles, with drones, and with disrupting trade both in the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea, both in the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandab Straits, which will raise oil prices around the world and the cost of shipping goods around the world for a substantial amount of time, possibly many months into the future. And that's something that the U.S. and many other countries in this region have actively been trying to prevent time and time again, to not reach that point where this region goes into a ball of fire once more. Trump's entire visit last week in this region was with the purpose of trying to stabilize and build a new treaty system in this region that pulls in the Saudis, the Qataris, and the Emiratis into an agreement that would force the hand of the Iranians into a more virtuous position in this region. But there is an option that what people are calling a bluff, might actually be true negotiation tactics, where Israel, together with the U.S., will continue pressuring and be on the brink of military attack, and that will pull the Iranians into signing an agreement that truly dismantles their military capabilities. But there is another option where Iran continues to refuse to enter into any substantial concessions in a negotiation, and Israel is forced to strike. And once more, we've been training for this for years. We've spent a lot of money, acquired equipment, we've trained our pilots and our ground crews exactly for this mission. And when we do strike in Iran, if that moment happens, it's going to be substantial and it's going to cause an incredible amount of damage for the Iranian regime and the Iranian military. Anyway, you need to stay up to date with everything that's happening. If you haven't done so yet, visit our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to keep up with every moment of news taking place in this part of the world. Now back to Yair Pinto.
Thank you very much, Mati Shoshani, for clarifying the details for us. To you, our viewers, I have a simple request. Keep spreading the truth with us by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on official social media accounts of Yair Pinto and Mati Shoshani. And most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, we're shifting our focus to Israel's northern arena, where important reports are coming from Lebanon and from Syria. To start with, in the last 24 hours, the Air Force carried out a strike that resulted in the elimination of the commander of Hezbollah's El-Mansouri sector in southern Lebanon. The IDF spokesperson stated, "During the war, the terrorists prompted numerous terrorist plots against the State of Israel, managed the attempts to rebuild the El-Mansouri sector, and advanced efforts to transfer weapons." And next door, in Syria, the Islamist regime of Ahmed el-Sarraj, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, warmly embraced in Arab states and even by the President of the United States and France, continues its crimes against humanity. Israel Hayom, an Israeli newspaper, has obtained distribution testimonies from Alawites in western Syria describing how the new reign of terror is conducted. Earlier this week, we reported on attacks on minorities, including Christians, immediately after Trump's announcement of lifting sanctions on the regime, and these new reports add credibility to this narrative. What is reportedly happening now in the coastal area in Homs province is appalling, as a senior figure in Syria's Alawite community said, "We are being murdered under shameful international silence." The April events never stops, and on the ground, they continue. They ask everyone, "Are you Alawite or Sunni?" If you're Alawite, they'll pull you from the car and force you to crawl and bark like a dog. Most likely, they'll then shoot you in the head for no reason. They also tie people to cars and drag them alive along the roads. They're still targeting the productive force of the Alawites, boys around 14 to 16. They want to destroy the Alawites as a community. We experience a bitter reality daily: murder, poverty, kidnapping of women and youths. It has worsened since the Trump statement. We thought that the declaration would benefit the minorities, but we were surprised when Trump announced his intention to lift the sanctions on Syria. And in a related story, Al Jazeera reported this week that in a joint statement released after a meeting in Washington, the United States and Turkey announced a commitment to deepen the security and the diplomatic cooperation in Syria. The statement said, "Washington and Ankara recognize the importance of preserving Syria's territorial integrity and stability without safe havens for terrorists and other terrorist organizations." The Syria Working Group meeting in Washington discussed easing sanctions and combating terrorism inside Syria, and both countries share a vision of a stable Syria, at peace internally and with its neighbors, which will allow millions of Syrian refugees to return home. There seems to be a horizon for a new future in this region, and to give us some more analysis on this situation, we now shift to our special correspondent, Shmulik Smadja, who will bring us an in-depth interview with Amir Tsarfati about how this visit profoundly changed the Middle East and where things are heading after his declaration on Syria. Over you to Shmulik Smadja in our studio with Boots on the Ground reports.
Thank you, Yair. Today we have the great honor to have with us Mr. Amir Tsarfati, the president of Behold Israel, very famous author here from Israel. Amir is a friend, a brother, and we go almost 30 years together. More than 30 years, oh man. And today we're going to talk about the relationship of Israel and America. There's no doubt that we are in a special time in the Middle East. We're in a special time in Israel. We started at 7th of October with a terrible, terrible war in the Middle East. There was a change in America during this war in the White House. Biden went to retirement. Trump came in. And we saw a shift. Let's talk about this relationship. First of all, let's talk about the differences between Biden's time at the White House and Trump's time in the White House during the war. And let's take it from there.
Yeah, so first of all, there's a fundamental difference between the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to Israel, because the Republicans are very much into the theological, spiritual connection with Israel, where the Democrats see more the value of Israel as an ally in the Middle East when it comes to economy, military, and so on, democracy and so on. I will say that America in a whole, I believe, from the moment Israel was born, America was already given a mandate to stand by Israel. You can clearly see that. Sometimes it went easier, sometimes it was tougher. When President Truman had to decide whether I'm going to recognize the newborn state of Israel, he did it against the Democrats who were manning the State Department. And he did that, and that changed everything. Fast forward to 1973, Israel was almost annihilated in Yom Kippur War. Golda Meir picks up the phone, calls the Republican president, Richard Nixon, and says, Mr. President, if within 48 hours America is not going to help us, Israel won't survive. And the president stopped and said, Golda, I want to tell you something. When I was a boy, my mom raised me to read Bible stories. And one time she read me a Bible story and she stopped and she said, Richard, I want you to promise me that if you ever have a chance to help the Jewish people, do so. And then he said, Golda, maybe for the first time I know why I became the president of the United States. He hung up the phone, and the largest airlift of armament since World War II took place. So just to set the tone of how important America is and how important it is to understand that there is a connection between the values the president gets before he becomes president. And when it comes to Biden and Trump, it was evident that Biden understands the necessity to stand by Israel, but his foreign policy has always been appeasement and appeasement and appeasement, whereas Trump is peace through strength. These are two different ideologies. And so I believe that America has a mandate, and I believe that any president that will embrace it will cause America to prosper and will cause America to succeed. Any president that will reject it will literally bring America to places that America should not be.
But we see a very interesting thing. Trump just had a visit here in the Middle East, and he's building very, very strong relationship with new, or I cannot say new, but major players in the Middle East.
Correct.
He just went to Dubai, he went to Qatar, he went to
Saudi Arabia.
But
it's a business trip.
And let's be honest, he didn't stop here.
Correct. And I would advise him not to also.
Really?
Yes, because it was a business trip. Every time someone wants to have what I call a wedge between the president of America and the Israeli prime minister, whether it's the left, whether it's the media, whether it's the Democrats, whether it's journalists, whatever, they always say that Trump has abandoned Israel, he threw Israel under the bus, and now he's going to recognize a Palestinian state, he's going to let Iran do this. And every time they're proven wrong. He did not say a word about a Palestinian state. He did not even make the Israeli-Palestinian and Gaza thing an issue.
Which was smart of him.
It was that's my point. He's standing there giving a 30 to 40 minutes long speech in Saudi Arabia, talk to them about IT, AI, economy, politics, strength, military.
And so on.
And he spoke to his audience. Why tainting it with Israel and Gaza? There's no point. I think it was a smart thing not to stop here. But at the same time, sometimes when someone is in an echo chamber of only hearing one side, you know how it is. You tend to make rush decisions that might not be taking into consideration other things. I believe he's smart. I don't agree with him on everything he does, but hey, I'm an Israeli. He's an American. He's not my president. And you know what? He is there to fulfill a policy for which American people voted.
He's not your president, but if he would be elected in Israel, he will get majority.
Absolutely, absolutely, because the Israelis are identifying themselves with the causes of President Trump. And that's my point. Again, I will be staunch critic when it comes to dealing with the devil. Dealing with Qatar is dealing with the devil. Dealing with Erdogan is dealing with the devil. Dealing with Giuliani is dealing with the... These are all jihadists. But I do see why he does it. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with it.
Interesting.
But I see why he does it.
Israel is on a verge of, if we want to say, extending the war with Hamas. What do you think America will do? They'll support us, allow us? Yeah. Where are we standing?
I think America will 100% allow us because they don't see the alternative as a viable thing. I think that, once again, Trump said that America will eventually take control of Gaza and make sure that it will be something different. And for that, he needs us to finish the job. Mm-hmm. He will not enter into Gaza when you have terrorists inside and we have terrorist sympathizers still inside.
We are seeing a new Middle East. We're seeing new players in the Middle East. And we see the stand of the White House vis-a-vis Syria, for example. Does this bring you any concern?
Yes, because I, as an Israeli, I don't trust jihadists.
But I'm not talking about trusting jihadis or not. Do you think America is forsaking Israel in any way?
No, I don't think so. I think America doesn't fully understand the nature of who America is dealing with, but it's not because it is forsaking Israel.
Exactly.
I think there is an innocence, naivete, something that is... and that's why I offer to advise to the president on how the other side is thinking. But again, this is not my...
I'm sure he has plenty of advice.
I'm sure, exactly. And many of them are Israelis also. But the thing is this, look, I believe that there is no malice there. There is no intention to abandon Israel, intention to walk away from Israel. No, I don't. I think there are sometimes mistakes that are made because of the lack of understanding of who they're dealing with. The Middle East is a different ballgame. It's not Europe. It's not China. This is not all about money. There is tribal affiliation. There is religious affiliation. There is historical affiliation. It's not something with, lifting sanctions. That's it. I'm your friend. I'm in love with you. The Americans tried it in Afghanistan. The Americans helped the Mujahideen in Afghanistan so they can beat Russia. Did that turn the Mujahideen, who later on became the ruling power in Iraq, did that turn them into American lovers? No. When they finished slaughtering the Russians, they began slaughtering the Americans. Mm-hmm. And so, again, you have to understand who you're dealing with. And the sooner they will understand the mentality, the better it is for them.
He was just in the Middle East. He did tremendous deals that will boost the American economy, no doubt, and I think many of the deals were smart and very good. Are you concerned from the military deals that he did, selling weapons to countries that we don't know if they're with us or against us?
No, I'm not concerned.
You're not concerned of all those F-35 and all?
No, first of all, I don't think he really sold F-35s. He's talking about that. I'm not sure that most of the deals that I'm aware of did not really include that. The only country that wants to buy it is Turkey, but Turkey is actually a member of the team that developed it. I don't know if you know, parts of the F-35s are made in Turkey.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes. So Turkey was banned from the F-35 because Turkey bought anti-aircraft systems from Russia. And so Trump punished them. He said, okay, if you're buying from Russia stuff and you're a member of NATO, then you're not getting my F-35s. But I am not concerned because, after all, the bottom line is who is flying the F-35. And after all, the future is not in F-35s, it's in drones. It's in UAVs. The future is if there is something you learn from the Ukraine-Russia war and the war even with the Houthis, is that it's the UAVs. It's less money, you don't risk your own pilots, and you achieve exactly the same target. And you can send 15, 20, 30, 50. If 2 will hit the target, it's enough for you.
Amir, people are watching you mainly from America, people who love Israel. Why don't you tell them what do you think?
I tell you, there's a danger in America right now that I think people should be aware of. And it's crawling also into the mainstream American, the everyday American that normally stands with Israel. There's a group within the Republicans right now, the conservative, that is known as the separatists. It's America first, but anything that has to do with protecting another country is not for us. In other words, if you're planning on attacking Iran, don't do it. It'll serve only Israel's interests. We're not here to serve anybody else's interests. And that type of mentality stems from the lack of understanding of the Middle East. Because if in the Middle East, someone is perceived as not standing with his allies, who would want to be his ally in the future? Okay?
So you mean that can affect America in the future?
Absolutely. I think that in their mind, if we don't go to fight for someone or help someone in a war, we will really take care of business of America only. But you will never do that because...
Maybe they say, listen, why my son, I live in Oklahoma somewhere, why does my son needs to risk his life for Israel?
You know what?
Let's be honest.
Don't risk your life. Send Israel the weapon, give Israel the satellite information, and allow Israel to do the job.
Yeah, I'm willing. That sounds very good, but I have so many homelesses in America.
I'm saying, don't send anyone.
Yeah, but no.
We will buy the weapon from you. We will buy.
Who's paying the bill?
Israel is always buying the weapon. You see, that's another lie from the pits of hell. Israel is receiving aid only if Israel will use it to buy weapon from America. It's a deal. It's a business deal. Israel is not receiving free gifts. When we receive something is so we will not buy it elsewhere. When we were told, don't develop your own fighter jet, it's because they want us to buy their own fighter jets. Don't fight for us. Don't send your kids. Let us buy from you. When you have an embargo, it's not embargo of giving us. It's embargo of selling us.
I have to stop you because we see in the fights against the Houthis, America stood there. America bombed the Houthis. So you cannot say that the Americans are not. It's costing them money. The American taxpayer is paying. The American pilots.
And who did America do that for? Not Israel.
That's the question.
Not Israel.
Also Israel. I mean,
the
missiles fall in Israel.
And they still fly. That's the thing. They never did it for Israel because the ceasefire excludes Israel. So it has never been about Israel. It's been about free route of trade ships. And it serves the interest of everyone.
Everyone, including us.
No, actually, they say if Israeli ship will go through, we will hit it. Look, America did it because America needed to do it for the sake of trade. And by the way, it did work because the Houthis said, hey, it's too much for us. Why don't we do this? Allow us to attack Israel only. Don't attack us. We won't attack you. That's it. And, it was a smart move. But now what I'm expecting them to do is, at least, if you don't want to attack them, let us do it. The Biden administration would not let us do it. That's the difference. The difference is in the attitude, not just not selling us weapons, but telling us we will actively sabotage it if you do it.
So now the White House is allowing us to do it. Let's talk about Iran. Can we do it alone?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes, I'm sure. But we need satellite, weapon, and we need protection in the UN.
And aerial protection against the missiles.
That's a given. America is there already. My point is, Iran is already naked. We already destroyed their air defense systems that were on the way. We paved the way for a strike.
They can still send missiles.
They can send missiles, and it's not a problem. Israel can handle that. The problem is with Iran is that in some sites it's so deep that you cannot just go and bomb one time. You have to take 3 to 4 days and do rounds of attacks on the same location. So if one bunker buster will reach a certain depth, the next one will go deeper, and the next one will go deeper until you reach it. Mm-hmm. And for that, you need that you will not be attacked from the other side. So America needs to give us an umbrella, okay? Mm-hmm. But America doesn't need to attack. We can do it. Look, throughout the years, Israel never trusted or leaned on American help. The only thing we wanted from America is don't stand on our way and give us the umbrella. That's all we want.
Amir, there's no doubt that America stood with Israel from the beginning. America is standing with Israel for 77 years. And the fact is that when those enemies of Israel are coming against Israel and they're burning flags of Israel, they're burning flags of Israel in America. When you see people walking on a flag in Iran, they're putting flags of Israel and flags of America. They see us as one. Do you see a possibility of a separation between those two?
No, I think that the only way America will not stand by Israel is when America will not be able to do that. Even now, at the eve of a possible agreement with Iran, the president might say we are advancing, but the Senate just sent him a letter, and the Congress, and 200 signatures of both parties, bipartisan.
Both sides of the House.
All of them are standing with Israel, some of them for, spiritual reason, some of them for ideological, but that's why I said what we need from America, and I see that's what we get from America, is a coverage not only militarily, but also in the diplomatic arena.
And it's a great opportunity to thank you. Thank you, America. Thank you for the church in America, for standing with Israel, for Israel, and thank you more for praying for the peace of Jerusalem, for the salvation of Israel, and for God's protection on Israel. Amir, it was great having you with us on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Yair.
Thank you very much, Mulik Smadja, for bringing us Amir Tsarfati and together giving us some clarity and insight into this very complicated situation. Before we pray together for our hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip, I have some news about one hostage. So Matan Sangoker's family, whose son, Matan, has been held captive for 593 days, revealed some news about the harsh testimony about his condition this week. According to the information that was received, Matan's physical and mental state is deteriorating as he suffers brutal, inhumane captivity conditions. The reports that Hamas send brings news of the hostages to their loved ones, but they also bring psychological torment, as the news is usually not good. In this case, Matan, whose latest proof of life came last week, is alone in captivity after being with Idan Alexander from October 7, 2023 until Idan's release earlier this month. During that period, he was allegedly kept near Hamas senior figures and with other hostages, some of whom were released, including Avnera Mengistu. New information reveals that Matan is suffering from muscular dystrophy and has lost much body weight and suffers tremors and muscle weakness to the point of difficulty standing because of his disease and harsh captivity conditions. He has long suffered intestinal blockage and several abdominal pains. His health is worsening. He is covered with flea and rat bites, receives poor nutrition, mainly dry, moldy bread and rice, and drinks salty, polluted water unfit for consumption. In recent months, Matan's mental state has sharply declined, and according to testimonies, he refuses to eat or speak and isolates himself for long hours in a corner of the tunnel. The testimonies indicate that he also endures physical and psychological torture, including interrogations and psychological terror. He was held in a cage, hands and feet shackled, moved between tunnels, mosques, and displaced persons tents. In one case, Matan and Dan Alexander were taken through a busy market with masked Hamas gunmen disguised as women. It is very important to remember all this and tell the world what they are doing, what Hamas is doing to our hostages. We at TBN Israel will continue to spread the truth. And together, let's pray for our hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip, for their swift, safe return home. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are fighting in the air, at sea, or on the land. Pray for the people of Israel, and pray for all the innocent lives in this region that are affected by the terrorist organization, Hamas, and other terrorist groups that are taking their orders from Iran. And most importantly, let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, this city right behind me.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.